Welcome to Leadership DNA, a podcast for those who aspire to be a better leader. Alongside Arturo Gomez, I'm Rob Cressy. In today's topic, the benefits of leading by example. And Arturo, every single action that we take as a leader sets the tone. Are your actions echoing louder than your words? Let's dive into leading by example and how this can amplify your leadership impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of one of those things that I feel like goes without saying, right? It's it's a saying that's been around really, I think from the beginning of when I started trying to study leadership and coaching, and it just has always it felt like something that just was common sense. But I think when you really kind of dive into it, it's the thing for me is that if you're going to try to convince people or move people to follow you, your message has to be believable. And if your message isn't believable, it starts really with, are you actually doing the things that you're asking us to do? And I think it's, it becomes really difficult because depending on where you are or who you are in terms of like the people that you're leading, I think it's a critical part of establishing culture and conveying the right message, directing people towards the vision. If you're not walking the walk, it's very difficult to get people to buy in.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things that we've previously talked about all layer into this. And I think part of leading by example is also selfless leadership or servant leadership, where ego can get in the way of people from leading by example, because oftentimes leadership or management can be seen as a hierarchy of who's at the top and the people at the bottom. And because I'm above you, I'm going to tell you what to do. So no matter what I say is the way that I do things. But for myself, I lead by example in everything that I do, and my entire brand has been built around this. And I think back to the very beginning of my journey, and a mentor once said, Rob, if you ever hope to get paid to do what you love, you better be doing it already. And from that moment, I was like, all right, I want to get paid to talk about sports for a living. So I taught myself podcasting, being a host, being on camera, social media marketing, brand building, essentially how to build a media company. So when I eventually evolved to being a coach and people hired me for strategy, it's very effortless for me because I led by example, because I'm the one who is always doing, and I've always took a slight amount of umbrage at marketing agencies who sell services, but then I check out their social media or their YouTube and I look and they're not doing the same things that they do for their clients. And to me, as a creator and as a leader, I always want to lead the way. And I think about my personal growth side of things, and I lead myself, one, for myself, but also for my family, for people like you, Arturo, the people who are listening or watching right now, that the way that we carry ourselves is an energy and it's a standard and it's a lifestyle. And all of those things coming from the top of leadership, they just get disseminated in everything that you do within your organization.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think you bring up a valid point. I mean, so there's there's different forms of it, right? So there's lead by example in terms of leading yourself, and that's a critical thing, and we talk about that a lot. And so what's that attached to? It's attached to who this individual that you want to be, and more so the individual that you're telling people that you are. And so it's critical that you're able to lead yourself and represent yourself as an example of what you're trying to be or who you're saying you are, right? I think that's critical. I think the other thing too is, how does a coach who's communicating from the sidelines, how does that individual lead by example when they may be out of their prime or never have played the sport, but they have the ability to coach and to mentor people? I think for me, it's a lot of it is really attached to the culture. There can certainly be a self kind of inclusive culture where the things that you are doing as an individual in terms of how you're trying to lead your own life, I think is a culture as well. But I think when we talk about leadership and this concept of lead by example, for me, it's very much attached to the culture of an organization or the culture of a specific movement, so to speak. And so, I think it's critical.
All right, Arturo, let's look at the other side of the spectrum of people who may be in organizations who are not leading by example. And this doesn't mean that everyone within a company is all aligned. Of course, that's one of the reasons why we create this podcast, is to help create this alignment and harmony in all that we're doing. And oftentimes the leader may lead by example, but there's an element of self-awareness and experience or earned confidence that helps you get to this. So if there's someone on your team who is on the come up, or maybe they're at the top of the food chain and they're not leading by example, where there's an incongruency between their actions and their words. And this is the worst when it happens in the top of the food chain, because everything falls or rises or falls to the level of leadership. What are your thoughts on what to do when leading by example is not present in an organization at any part of it?
Well, I think you gotta reel that in quick. It's a fact. But listen, I think there's two parts of it, right? I think and it happens all the time. It happens all the time. I mean, I think this entire concept of lead by example, I mean, it's like, you're asking for like sainthood, right? It's like, it is, that somebody's going to be flawless, every day, 24/7, that's not realistic. And so, the math, the numbers, the percentages have to lean towards more, you're more in that leading by example space than certainly not. But, I've seen it in various times where people just kind of lose control and they go down a separate path, and they're certainly not, holding themselves up in a way that's representative of that concept. But I also think there are times and opportunities that if leaders are honest with their team and letting people know, hey, today, you know what, I'm having a bad day. Like I'm not in top form today. I think that's also okay. I think it's important to be transparent. I think it's important to actually communicate that, And so, I mean, there's times where I will share that information with my team. Like, hey, if you see me in the building and I'm wearing X or I'm doing Y, I'm not here as your boss or your leader. I'm here as a patron, or I'm here for another reason. So just understand that. Understand that, if I'm sitting here and enjoying myself, it's not because I'm not wanting to or focused on doing my job. It's because I'm merely here enjoying myself. And so kind of categorize me a little bit differently. I still think that there's aspects of you being in the building or you being around your team that you have to uphold. I mean, it doesn't give you free right or reign to be, different, a completely different person. But I think that there's oftentimes that, people are looking at you in a certain way. And I think that it's hard to be that person every day.
Yeah, and I think you said a very interesting thing about people lose control and how we see control as leaders as we lead ourselves. And I don't see leading by example as me being perfect, because perfection is the enemy of greatness. That, to me, it is actually a flaw in leadership if everything you do is all around perfection. Of course, there are standards of excellence, but perfection oftentimes can lead to inaction or not shipping the work. And we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I really like the concept of where control lives in all of this, because leading by example to me is effortless, because it is a state of being. It is who I am. And it doesn't mean that I'm perfect, but you feel the energy and you feel the heart and you understand my core values in who I am. And this is more of a DNA than it is a control side of things. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think for some people they are. I think for young managers and people that are aspiring to try to understand how to lead people, I think that there's always that element in the back of their mind. I mean, there is certainly for me. Some things I think are very flawless and just, part of the behavior and part of the actions of like just my mechanics, but it's not, there is not a day where I don't put pressure on myself to make sure that the things that I'm asking or the things that are coming out of my mouth are things that I know that 100% that I can do or that I'm showing. Because again, to me, it's in order to move the needle from a cultural standpoint, it's either people are going to look at you and they're going to believe you or they're not. And if they're going to believe you, they have to really understand that you have the capacity to do what you're asking them to do. And so to the points that we've kind of been making, there's different forms of it. Are you able to, lead yourself and kind of create those examples and kind of move down a path where you want and honor that? And then, how does it look when you're actually managing large groups of people? And what does that requirement look and feel like? And so I think, for me, there's always an element in the back of my mind is my message coming across properly, and are they viewing the way that I'm delivering it and the things that I'm doing to kind of help move this thing along in the right way?
Yeah, and one quote that comes top of mind for me is, I would never ask you to do something that I have not done myself. And it doesn't always mean that we've done every single role, but in leadership, our ability, and Arturo, we even did podcasts about this on getting our hands dirty, that we are both visionaries living at the top as well as willing to do or have done the air quotes grunt work, the day-to-day execution side of things, that we don't live in an ivory tower, and we understand and we can create empathy, and it allows us to be a better leader because we've been in those shoes before.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also the flip side. It's if you in the aspect of asking somebody to do something that you can do or you can't do. Sometimes I don't allow that to be a hindrance when I know that the response is, or the direction should be in a specific. I'm asking you to do something that maybe I understand, but that I certainly can't do. But I'm going to acknowledge to that teammate. Hey, I need your help. I need you to do this. I'm not going to even pretend that I can do what you're doing. That's why you're here. You're part of this because you're different than I am. But I think you can still bring elements of lead by example throughout that entire picture. I think it comes with intensity. It comes with preparation. It comes with the way that you communicate a specific message. And a lot of it too, to me, is attached not necessarily about individual behavior, but I think that is very, very important. I think it's also, what's the vision, where are we trying to go, and we all should be leading in that specific direction. But I'm not afraid to certainly ask somebody to do something that I'm incapable of doing or don't understand, if it's going to get us across the finish line.
Of course. And by no means does this mean that we have the ability to do every single thing in our business, because that's why there are people that we bring in that specialize in certain things. And I think the theme, of course, being there's a variety of tasks that can happen in an everyday scenario when leading people. And it can be as simple as picking up a paper towel off the ground in a bathroom, because you understand that cleanliness and everything you do is a reflection of your brand. So you as a leader are willing to pick up a paper towel on the ground, and not saying that I won't do something like that, as opposed to, I don't know Photoshop and graphic design, but me as a leader, I'm just going to fight my way through it. We have those things for specialization for a reason. So Arturo, let's get to our action item and our takeaway. And for me, around leading by example, give what you would love to receive in your life. So what I would love for you to do is to give someone on your team a compliment and encourage them to pass that along to somebody else, because your ability to create a positive culture and a positive environment for others starts with yourself. So just go today, give someone a compliment and say, hey, by the way, pass this along. What about you, Arturo? What's your action item or takeaway today?
I think if people are getting an opportunity to start practicing this, and again, I think there may be people that are listening to us that don't have the opportunity because they're just not in that place or in that position. I'd contradict that and say that we all have an opportunity to lead by example. And so I think, determining intention, if somebody really is trying to impact this specific lane, to just think about what they're representing and what their goal is in terms of their representation, and use that as an exercise to try to, I think, further define and help show themselves primarily that they can follow down that path.
Arturo, one of the things that's very important to us is engagement. We'd love to hear from you. We've got this across all social media platforms. We've got a LinkedIn group. Where can everybody connect with you?
It's going to be Arturo Gomez LinkedIn.
And on my end, you can hit me up on Instagram or LinkedIn at Rob Cressy.